Sometimes a book finds you wrapped inside a question so big it refuses to let go. The question? Well, what would happen if one ordinary person suddenly had the power to influence everyone around them? And more importantly, what would they do with it? I've got an author I'd like you to meet who takes that fascinating premise and hands it to the least likely candidate imaginable. Stick around because you'll not only learn more about this book, you'll learn about the writing voyage this author took to create it.
Welcome to A Book Finds You podcast. This week's guest is David Sloan. Join us as he shares the inspiration behind his book, along with his writing process, routines, and challenges. And now, here's your host, best-selling author, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, David Sloan, is a novelist in Baltimore County, the author of 5 books. He's a professional project manager with a background in neuroscience and healthcare. He loves writing for middle grade audiences, coincidentally, the age range of his 4 kids, and trying to simplify the complex problems of our times in engaging narratives. Happy to have you with us, and welcome back to the show, David.
It is a pleasure to be back.
Well, good to have you here. And you missed by one podcast because we've never had a guest back until the previous podcast. So I guess this is how long it takes to nurture and create a book. About what are we, about a year and a half or so from the last appearance?
That's about right, and I'm glad to establish the trend.
There you go. We got 2 of you now. Well, and you know what? You got to earn it, and you earned it. So, the first question. Tell me, how did this particular book find you?
So you'll recall that the first book I brought, Cameraman, came about because it was kind of a millennial fantasy. What if you could go back and take video of anything in history and put it on YouTube? This book came from a similar millennial fantasy, which is, what does it mean to have a powerful voice, and what does it mean to be the ultimate influencer? And I found myself having a fantasy in my mind where I looked around and there were a lot of problems in the world, and there were a lot of things that I would like to see change. And I had this fantasy of what if I could stand in front of the State of the Union address, like the president does, with all the people in the room and everybody's listening, and be able to speak to the world and be able to say, all right, look, people, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to change. And I don't want to hear any argument about it. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to do that. And all the people of the world would go, okay, all right. That sounds great. And then the world would change. That's obviously not a realistic fantasy, but a lot of people who want to have an influential voice and want to be heard and want to be seen, in this era of influencers, are trying to pursue some tiny bit of that power.
Right.
So I wanted to see what would happen if we could take that to the farthest extreme, and that's where this idea initially came from.
Right, because your main character, Trent, becomes a public speaker in a sense, right? I mean, he learns he's a speaker.
Eventually,
Yeah.
he acquires this ability to be able to say things, and everybody would just do what he said or believe what he said to believe. And he has to figure out what to do with that power,
Right.
suddenly given this voice.
Right.
And that brings on a lot of questions about what do you do with a powerful voice?
Right. So his character feels like very much like an underdog. Are there some similarities between Trent and you?
A few. I understand a character like Trent very well. So when we find Trent, he is a freshman in high school. He's extremely quiet. He is not the kid who's going to raise the hand. He's not the kid who's going to stir the pot. He's just trying to keep his head down and get through the day and go home where he feels safe. And that's the way he lives his life. And I remember growing up, I was kind of a nerdy kid, a happy kid, but a nerdy kid, not a especially social, quiet kid. And I recall what it felt like to just want to get through the day and not draw attention to myself and go home. And that's a way to go through life, but it's not one where you can influence a lot of other people for good.
Right. Well, you're kind of in my wheelhouse because not only do I speak professionally, okay, but I write books about influence. So,
Mm.
because I typically work with sales teams. So, I'm really kind of fascinated with the subject. Were there moments where Trent's choices as a writer, because I know I'm saying, oh, we see some similarities, but were there some surprises of the choices that he might have made that would have been different than your own, let's say?
I think so. And one of the reasons that I wanted to use a youth as the protagonist was one, I knew that if I were to just write the story about my own fantasy, it wouldn't be that interesting for a, middle-aged adult to go through this. And but I also wanted to focus in on his trying to accomplish what he's going to try to accomplish with a complete lack of awareness about the world. When you become an adult, you have all these ideas about history and the future and politics and philosophy, and you want to start to acquire the desire to impose that viewpoint on other people. But when you're young, you're still developing that. And so I wanted him to come to the problem naive. And so where I would come in with all these preconceived notions, he comes saying, I have no clue what to say or how to influence people or what to get them to think. And he has to figure out who the right voices are to listen to and then ultimately come to his own conclusions. But that's the dichotomy that I wanted to draw.
Well, it's interesting because there's kind of two themes here, and probably more than that, but let me, as an amateur, try and piece it together. There's the theme of speaking, okay, but then there's also the theme of almost being heard,
Yeah.
and just the fear of kind of stepping in front of a room, which I don't know if you know this, it's more of an urban legend that fear of speaking is our biggest fear. It's that thing that has been dragged around for a while. I would tell you that it's true, except I actually put it in one of my books, went through a legal read, and they said, well, no, it's more of an, it's just not, death is number one, drowning's coming in up there, snakes, but suffice to say, it's in the top five, okay? But
Right.
it's a big fear. So, in a sense, what's interesting about your book is you tackled one of the biggest fears that we have,
Mhm.
and just that kind of awkwardness that so many of us go through. We just don't talk about it. And you kind of piece them together. It's just, to me, it's fascinating.
So I think the main distinguisher between somebody who has a fear of public speaking and somebody who wants to be seen and heard constantly comes a lot from their confidence and their motivation. So somebody who has a pure fear of public speaking is afraid not of the sound of their voice or not of actually being there, but of being judged
Right,
by their words or the way that they look, or some fear that they are inadequate and everybody's going to figure that out.
right,
That it's a secret that by speaking they're going to reveal. On the other hand, people who really want to be seen and who are constantly online and trying to draw attention to themselves have one of two motivations. They are either inward looking, where they feel a great sense of satisfaction by being seen and heard, or they are trying to influence people in a way that they are changing their way so that the world becomes different, either for better or for worse. And it's very difficult to parse out sometimes what exactly is the right approach. You can feel very confident about your ideas and want to get them out there, but have you really thought them through? Are you really confident that the things that you are saying are actually going to be for the benefit of other people? And that's very hard to balance your confidence and your motivation in speaking to the point that you feel confident that you are doing the right thing by using your voice in the way that you're using it. And that's the struggle that Trent ultimately has to deal with, and that we all kind of have to deal with.
yeah. Well, and I think that's at the heart of your book. That's the most fascinating part. Not the fact that he's acquired this skill. And remember, you can always correct me, but how he uses this newfound power, and which is I, I really find this to be a really interesting topic. And David, I think you're writing to a lot of people who the speaking part is just almost it's almost not as necessary. It's those that are, not the extroverts, not jumping up on the tables, want to be heard. Well, what if we gave you that power? Would you abuse it? How would you control it? And it just anyway, I think you've got something there. Uh, let's go to you by night. You're a writer, so tell me. Let's get into your writing process for everyone else who's got a daytime job and a love for writing and wanting to accomplish what you've accomplished. How do you parse it out? How much time do you spend either a night or a week writing?
So it has been a struggle of mine to find a certain amount of time that I don't feel guilty about dedicating to writing. And, I have to balance my family life, my professional life, and I know that there are responsibilities that I have. And writing doesn't fulfill any of those responsibilities. So I do try and find little bits of time, a half an hour in the morning, a half an hour in the evening, a half an hour on a weekend, where I can sit down and work through things. And it takes a little bit of time to do it that way. It takes a lot of dedication and regular planning and being committed to this idea that you're going to prioritize something that other people would not prioritize. And it takes a long time, but eventually you get there. It becomes a marathon type of writing process for me.
Right. Well, what you're describing to me, it's not that dissimilar than my approach. I'm more of a page count guy or a word count guy. How I get there, every week's different, but I got an eye on what I want to accomplish. And I equated David to I was a runner for many years. And when I would train for a marathon or a distance race, I might put 30, say, I'm going to go 30 miles this week or 40 miles this week. I have no idea exactly how that's going to be parsed together, but I do know one thing. If it's Saturday or Sunday night, and I've got 10 miles to go. I'm going out for a long run in the rain. I refer to as I actually wrote a piece called pardon this language, but I've actually checked it out. I can use this word. I called it the schmuck running in the rain. And where we see somebody who is on a Sunday night and it's dark and it's cloudy and it's misty and it's raining, and look at that idiot running in the rain. I kind of respect it because I think like a writer like you. And I think somebody made a commitment and they had other things to do that week, but they're trying to hit that commitment. And people I've mentored sometimes have sent me pages at 3 and 4 in the morning a Sunday night. And I know I'm just saying, doing a little running in the rain, are we? But they get it done. We writers get it done. Some weeks are either easier than others.
There was an idea I heard once that I really liked, which is to think about your life like a fractal. So, in fractal geometry, what's unique about it is that no matter how much you zoom in on it, the shape looks the same. So if you look at 1 hour of a person's life or one day, the shape of that day, if you were to extrapolate it out over the course of many years, would look generally the same. So for a writer, if you are finding a time to allocate just a little bit of time to that part of your craft, as well as to the other things that are really important, if you're dedicating a lot of time to your family or your passions and so on, then if you were to extrapolate that daily routine out, then you will find that sense of accomplishment has played out, and that little half hour has yielded, 30 years worth of writing or 30 years worth of dedication to your passion. And so I try and think about my day-to-day schedule as being a little snippet, a little fractal of a life that I ultimately want to look back on and see the full pattern of.
Well, you've just hit another first. You're the first guy to make the fractal comparison on our show. But well said. Uh, how about other writing? Do you journal? Do you blog?
I do journal. I think it's really important to keep a daily journal, and I do a lot of writing for work. Uh, but I also have a number of stories always in my head. So I have this whole set of stories that I'm writing that are aimed at youth and trying to be uplifting and trying to be very intellectually interesting for people that are in the middle grade teenage mindset. And then I have this whole other set of stories that are about foxes in the woods. And one day I might tell you about those. But I always have two or three writing projects that I'm juggling, and I always have some type of thing where I can sit down and say, I'm not going to write this thing, I'm going to write this other thing. So I'm always at the keyboard doing something.
That's interesting. My wife is an artist and she's a collage artist, so she really has to piece it together, layer by layer. And when you go in there, she'll have five or six pieces going, and people always ask, "How long does it take you to finish a piece?" I have to explain to them, and it sounds like you, that it's almost like watching a grandmaster chess player playing five people at once, and they move from board to board. And sometimes they'll stay a little longer on one board than the other, but they're basically playing five games at once. And I think what you're describing is, in a sense, is you sort of are moving from board to board as you write.
The other way I would describe it, and I think this is true for a lot of writers, is that it is our experience as people to live in the world and to know that there are a lot of things going on. So when you're opening a news site, in the old days, a newspaper, you'd have your sports section, you'd have your politics section, your world events, and your community. And you know that all of those things are happening simultaneously. And your brain accustoms itself to the idea that there are an infinite number of stories that are happening at the same time in the world. For a writer, when you start going the path, especially if you're a fiction writer, but I think it's also true for nonfiction, and you understand this concept, then you just readapt that understanding about the world to your own internal literature world. So you can have multiple stories happening at once, simultaneously, often in the same universe. Stephen King and stuff does a lot of things in his own universe. Uh, and it then becomes very easy to just step away from one, turn the page of the newspaper, and go to the other one and pick up that other thread. And that kind of way of thinking about writing and being able to move between stories is very handy because sometimes, like in this story and other stories I've written, you can tie things together, things get woven in and out, stories cross over each other, and that enriches the writing experience overall.
Right. And at the same time, uh, I'm curious, when you step away from one, work on another, does this create more of an environment to abandon a particular project or an idea?
It can, but I feel like I've never truly abandoned an idea.
Good for you.
I even start like my first novel, the first novel I ever started writing, I started writing in high school. It's called Ambassador, and I made it about two-thirds of the way through my first draft, and then I ultimately left it. But it still exists. It's still the manuscript in the back of my head, in the library in the back of my head, is still sitting on a shelf. And one day I want to pick it back up and finish it up, but I don't feel like it's ever been let down. But I also feel like a lot of the ideas I get, like I said, I can take those ideas and I could pop them into other stories. There are ideas for other stories that I popped into this one. There was a Twilight Zone episode that I wanted to write one day, and I changed that Twilight Zone episode into a philosophical exercise that I applied to Trent, and it enriched the story and it made it really good. And so setting might change and context might change, but the pure ideas of things you can pull from anywhere, and that gives stories a lot more flavor.
Well, you saw me get excited because not everybody agrees with us, but I really feel, I mean, our show's called A Book Finds You. All right. That idea, whether it's 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it found you for a reason. And I'm not an abandoned guy. I think once we start getting in the habit of abandoning ideas because they're just not immediately coming to fruition, we
Mhm.
run the risk of a graveyard of ideas. So I love what you're doing. I'm fine with putting it in a drawer. Okay. I
Yeah.
just don't want to put it in a garbage can. I don't want to delete it. I believe you even said maybe when it comes back, it's not exactly the same story, But if you've ever studied brainstorming, it's not the idea you're putting out, it's that that idea allowed me to find the next idea. And I wouldn't have found it without the first idea. So I just think it's there for a reason. And I'm just hoping people who are listening understand that the easy approach is just to toss it. The better approach, somewhat opinionated, but at least we share an opinion. The better approach is never throw it out. Mail it to David or Rob, okay? And we'll keep it and we'll keep it for you. And 5, 10 years from now, when you go, oh, I wish I had it, we'll send it back to you. But don't get rid of it. I think your instincts are right. It's there for a reason.
Yeah, if you come up with an idea, I really believe this, that if you come up with an idea that you really like, it is because you have tapped into some piece of truth or something very delicious, but you don't really know necessarily when you tap into it how to make it grow and mature or how it fits as a puzzle piece in a broader puzzle of ideas. And sometimes, for example, when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle, you have a piece and you're like, oh, that's a really cool looking piece, but you have no idea, you haven't done enough of the puzzle to know where it fits, and so you have to put it aside. But that kernel of truth or that idea that's very delicious has a spot and has an opportunity to mature in the right context. And you just have to have enough faith in those ideas to believe that that context or that situation or that maturation process exists. And um, that takes a little bit of confidence in yourself to
Right.
believe.
Right. Well, I think you hit it with one word. You said the word faith. I think
Mhm.
it's faith in that idea. And I'm really love where we are right now because I just fear, particularly for newer writers, that that shiny penny gets a little dull. They get a little tired of the story and they have another voice barking at them going, it's no good. Toss it. And let's start it again and let's do it again. And that's when you and I, because you're not a first time author, so I already know that you do get approached by people who go, I've always wanted to write a book.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're losing faith in the idea. And so I hope that we've given them a little bit of shove, you and I today. Uh, all right. Let's talk about our favorite topic, publishing and marketing. By day, he's a neuroscience. By night, he's writing, and somehow he's also marketing. Uh, what type of marketing moves do you make on your books?
So I self-publish most of my books, or I have. So, this one I just put up on Amazon. I am I do have a website, tanglemapledawn.com, where I have
Wait a minute, slow that down again. What's that website?
it's called tanglemapledawn.com. So the
Okay,
name of that website comes from these Fox books that I'm writing. There are
okay,
three characters, Tangle, Maple, and Dawn. And a lot of that website is actually dedicated to those stories. But um, I have started the process of trying to use that website not only as a means of advertising who I am and what the book is, but to find ways to engage people in the conversation that the book is meant to engage in. Everybody listen to Trent is written in a way that is meant to elicit questions and to elicit a discussion amongst the readers about how to have a conversation about what it means to have a powerful voice. So I am looking for ways to use the website to put up different discussions about those topics so that people can engage in it and find other ways into the book and out of the book so that it's actually an enriching experience beyond just a literate experience. But that's a work in progress. That's something I'm really just starting out now.
yeah, yeah,
I'm very excited to go on that journey.
right. And I failed. I don't think we mentioned the title of your book, so I'm glad you threw it out there. And it kind of rolls off the tongue. Tell me the name of that book again. Trent Amato.
Everybody listen to Trent Amato. This
Everybody
book,
listen to Trent
with
Amato.
with an exclamation point at the end.
Right, right. Okay. And we got the basic premise of it, but that certainly delivers on that speaking side for him. Okay. Do you have a lead magnet on your website?
A lead magnet?
A way of gathering people,
Oh, yeah.
followers and email addresses and hopefully giving them something for the kindness of them giving you their email.
Not yet, but that's also something I'm putting out.
Well, I tell you, the reason why I throw that at you, David, is because I think it'll fit into your neuroscience nighttime kind of move. We want this, we want to be marketing while we're sleeping, okay?
Right.
And I talk about it now and then, but just as a reminder, folks, lead magnet meaning we go to David's website and David says, join my mailing list. And
Right.
we go, why? I isn't seeing you enough. And we go, well, I'll tell you why, because here's a chapter that didn't make the book, or here's a poem I wrote once, something that someone who's following you says, oh wow, I get something extra for being here. Uh, but if that's set up properly, once it's on the website, everything is going through electronically. You're not going to mailboxes, you're not sending emails, and a string of emails going. And then maybe if you blog or you do something else, it becomes part of that database, but it also becomes a much easier conversation for publishers when you're pitching your book and they go, love the book. What about the social media side? I've got X number of followers, in my database.
Right. And I did an experiment with Cameraman after I published it that I hope to apply here as well, where I created a YouTube series based on the book and then advertised the YouTube series. And the YouTube series contained lectures and bonus content about Cameraman so that if you were reading along with it, you could get that extra material and then have the video as supplemental. And so I hope to do that here with Trent as well, because I think there are a lot of really good conversations that would lend themselves to a type of social media video series.
Outstanding. I can't go to a conference now for podcasters or authors where I don't hear the words YouTube is king. So I think you're in the right sandbox there. Maybe some shorts that you can make off of that. I can just tell you, as a guy who's experimenting it myself, that my videos get some traction. My shorts get 50 times the number of hits that an actual interview will get. Welcome to our world now. People would like little bits and bytes of 60 seconds, 40 seconds, 30 seconds, but a piece about that character, a dream that you had, that Twilight Zone that you were thinking about. This is what brings people back. Because if they read your book, what a gift and a blessing, um, they want more.
Yeah,
And we can only create so much content. So shorts are nice because you can take them right off of your video, really, and get them out there.
that's right. And I love the idea. I've always loved the idea of creating artifacts that expand the imagination, expand the world of the book, not just from the author's point of view, but from the character's point of view.
Yep.
And that's been very effective in the environment. And I love the idea of branching out to more multimedia
Yeah.
style storytelling.
Yeah. And what's nice is that's why folks we get on podcasts is that David's going to get an MP4, a video of this podcast. You can put that up on the website, on the YouTube channel. But B, let's do what we were talking about and take a couple of shorts out where you're really nailing a particular idea or issue that's going to connect. So we'll have that for you as well. All right, my friend. Let's see. How do people get a hold of you?
They can go to my website, tanglemapledawn.com. I'm also on Bluesky,
Yeah.
Dr. David M. Sloan on Bluesky. And yeah, I'd love to hear from you. Love
Okay.
to
All right.
have people.
You got, I don't know. We may have to work on that website name, particularly the way you say it. Takamatsunswet.com. It doesn't, I know that's very familiar to you, but
Right.
for us, Tangle Maple Dawn,
Yeah, DAWN. Yeah,
Dawn.
yeah, I agree that that will probably need more advertising.
It's Tangle Maple Dawn.com.
Right.
Okay. Know how to get it to you. All right. Last question. Somebody sitting here right now listening to you and thinking, "Ooh, I want to get my book going." What would be one piece of advice, particularly from a grizzled author like yourself who's been at it for a while? What would you tell them just to give them a little push?
I would say all of my stories began with me writing a key chapter. So, or something in a short story format And if you can write one chapter that you think encapsulates the idea of the character and the idea of the story, one scene, one thing that really exemplifies and distills what you're trying to write, then the rest of the story will grow very naturally from that. So I would say focus in on the one scene that you think is most representative of what you want to write, get that down on paper, and then let the rest of it grow from there.
I got to tell you, what an outstanding piece of advice, because I'm with you. I think a lot of it is just getting those first words down, getting something down. It's amazing the momentum that a writer experiences, but we don't get momentum thinking about it. We got to get something down. So why not go to an area that feels the most familiar or fresh to you, so that we don't come out of the gate with the most difficult chapter. We come out with something that feels good, looks good, and gains some momentum. What a fantastic idea, David. Thank you. Listen, great seeing you. Welcome to the Two Timer Club. Maybe we'll get, like Saturday Night Live, we'll get little jackets for the 5-timers, but you got a lot of writing ahead of you. But welcome to the Two Timer Club. There's only 2 of you in there. And I think we've got about 80 or 90 podcasts now. So we've been going. But really great seeing you again. Congratulations on the new book. And folks, let's go find that book. And remember, we don't just buy them from Amazon. We write reviews. But pleasure meeting you again.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's guest author, we'd love you to rate, review, and share this episode with others. If you'd like more information on today's guest or the Maryland Writers Association, please visit our website at marylandwriters.org. You can also hear a brief history of the Maryland Writers Association by listening to episode 0.